Hey, this is Tim again. Follow me on Instagram at Tim in USA 96. Just want to kind of introduce myself a little better for anyone who doesn't know me. If anybody actually watches this that doesn't know me. I am married, have 4 daughters, the youngest of which is 18 and a senior in high school, so that can tell you about how old I am. I live in Central Florida. I have been working in power plants, in operations and construction and commissioning and startup for years. I'm currently in Boston, Massachusetts, actually Salem, Massachusetts, north of Boston, working on a GE project up here. It's going to end here in another month, 2 months, somewhere in there. And I'm considering going to Indonesia and working on a project there. I have worked in Kuwait for almost 3 years. I worked in Saudi for 3 years on different projects there. Not all GE, just the highest bidder. Whoever will pay me the most, that's where I go. So I've been to quite a few places in the States and in the world. I've seen quite a few things. I am an avid history buff. I love history, primarily American history, but I do get into some of the world history also, but I really love American history, early American history. I am an avid supporter of the Second Amendment, the entire Bill of Rights, the entire Constitution. I'm not really I would consider myself a constitutionalist. I'm not a Republican, although I am a conservative. The Republicans, which tend to be more conservative. As of late, I'm not sure, but they tend to be more conservative, and I usually vote Republican. However, the Republicans are really ticking me off here lately. What else? I want to do more fun stuff on this YouTube channel. I want to do gun stuff. I want to get into some shooting. I don't necessarily want to do gun reviews and things like that because I am not a gun expert. I'm not somebody who has decades and decades of tearing apart firearms and building my own firearms and machining and things like that. So I don't really feel like I'm qualified to give real good gun reviews. I can give you my opinion on the guns that I have or the guns that I've shot, but I'm not really a quote-unquote gun expert. And I don't have sponsors. I can't go out and shoot thousands of rounds like Hickok 45, or Iraq Veteran 88, or 22 Plinkster, or any of those guys that you see on YouTube. And I would encourage, if you're not following some of those people on YouTube, Demolition Ranch, I love Demolition Ranch, go follow them. It's really good content. It's entertaining. All those guys and gals are pro Second Amendment, pro Constitution, pro America patriots. And if anything, in this day and age, we really need to stick together and support our fellow patriots. I don't want to talk politics every time. I want to do fun stuff. I want to show some fun stuff I do with my family. We have a good time. We live in Central Florida, and we're right in the middle of the Disney and Universal and Busch Gardens. I live between Tampa and Orlando. So I want to show some of that stuff too. But I do get political. I do tend to, in as I've grown older, I've become a little more serious, and I'm seeing some things that are really, really bothering me about the United States. I served 10 years in the Navy on submarines. I was a nuclear power plant operator on submarines, and I got out in '95. Since then, and I've talked about this with my wife multiple times, since '95, I don't even recognize my country. I don't recognize where I live anymore. For instance, excuse me, I'm up here in Boston, Salem, Massachusetts. I am in the birthplace of the revolution, the birthplace of freedom. This is where it all started. In fact, in 1774, right here in Salem, the governor of Massachusetts sent redcoats to break up an illegal town meeting or gathering. I think at that point he had limited public gatherings to once per year. And they were holding this illegal gathering. So he sent a troop of redcoats to go break it up, and they came back running with their tails between their legs, because when they got to Salem, they were met by 3,000 men, all armed with rifles. And the governor's aide, reported back to him and says, we met 3,000 men between 16 and 60, all armed with rifles, with plenty of shot and plenty of powder. It boggles my mind that at one point, not that long ago, 243, 45 years ago, that the people of this state, the men and the women of this state, were willing to stand up to the most powerful army, the most powerful empire the world had ever seen at that point. And they were basically farmers and craftsmen. They weren't professional soldiers. They had never trained as soldiers. And they stood up. They saw something. They held principles in their heart, the principles of freedom and liberty in their heart so strongly that they were willing to stand up to the king and to the army of Great Britain and the British Empire. It amazes me thinking about that, and then seeing how far, not just Massachusetts, but all of New England has declined. Here in, for instance, I did some work in Oklahoma City for a while, earlier this year, for about 6 months, 7 months, something like that. And I had no qualms about traveling with my guns. I took a gun case with me every time I flew to and from Oklahoma City. I'd fly home about once every 3 or 4 weeks, and I'd fly with my guns. And I had a case a Pelican case, where I could put my one of my ARs, an AK, and 3 handguns, and plenty of magazines in it. In and out of the airport like a breeze, no problem. In fact, when I first time I flew out of Oklahoma City, it was kind of neat, because as I was rolling my case up there, the Delta terminal agent there says, "Oh, you have rifles. Oh, that's nice. What do you have?" And she wanted to talk to me about my rifles as we were filling out the little form that you gotta sign saying they're unloaded. I popped it open, threw it in there, and I was 5 minutes done. Just thinking about trying to bring those same things up here, oh my goodness, no way, no way. You have to have a Massachusetts firearms license. I couldn't legally do it up here. They have so screwed up the idea of being a firearms owner up here in this state that you have to have a firearms license. And even for me to go rent a gun, when I first got up here, I thought, well, I'll just go. I won't take any guns, but I'll go every week, and I'll find me a nice range, and I'll rent a handgun, rent a rifle, something, and just go plinking, just to keep up the practice. Can't do it. I have to have a Massachusetts firearms license, or I have to bring somebody with me that has a Massachusetts firearms license. That's insane. Compare this to the men, and I'm including 16-year-olds when I say men, the men back in the colonial times that stood up to the redcoats and said, nah, we're done with you. We're not going to take it. It's mind-blowing. To the point now, too, where I don't even know that I want to do another project up in New England. And that's sad, because there are some beautiful country up here. There are some incredible historical sites to see. In downtown Boston, I mean, my goodness, there's all kinds of historical sites and things to see and to partake in. And all over New England, this is where it all happened. But I don't want anything to do with this place. I don't want anything to do with these people. It's just not, I mean, I don't know what happened to him. I can't explain how this happened to this part of the country. But, and then, you know, I'm looking at, another thing I did today was I looked at a town hall. I regularly read Town Hall and American Thinker and some other conservative publications online. I was reading an article on Town Hall today. I can't remember who wrote it, but it basically said, we conservatives really need to be careful about how we portray these young teenagers from the Parkland school down in Florida that are leading the charge against the Second Amendment. And my blood just boiled when I read that. we need to be careful. I'm sorry, but we have decades of being careful, and what has it gotten us? We've had decades of working within the political and the judicial system, and where are we now? Where are we? I mean, just last week, how many times did you see, either in the news or in publications that you read, or had people say to you, nobody wants to take your guns away. Come on, you're crazy. Now, today, we have a former United States Supreme Court justice calling for the repeal of the Second Amendment. Folks, if that doesn't get your blood to boil, you might want to check your patriotism. You might want to figure out what side you're on, because that is the beginning of the end. Another thing is these Parkland kids, and I'm not going to name them. I'm sick of seeing them everywhere on the news, in every publication, everywhere you see these Parkland kids. I had a bit of sympathy for them at first, because they are survivors of a horrific shooting. I mean, let's face it, it's something that should not have happened. This Cruz kid should never have had a gun, and their classmates should be alive today, and we should never have known their name. But my sympathy's gone. I can't stand them anymore, because they stood up there on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. and basically called me a murderer. They called you a murderer. If you're a Second Amendment supporter, if you're an NRA supporter, if you're a Gun Owners of America supporter, they called us the equivalent, not equivalent, they called us murderers. How am I supposed to take that? I've never murdered anyone in my life. My guns, none of my guns have ever murdered anyone in my life. But they had the gall to stand up there and call us murderers. And you know, a lot of what they say is scripted. I don't believe this is coming from them. I believe the powers that be, the George Soroses, the Bloombergs, and the affiliated groups of those two evil men are the ones that are orchestrating all this. They're the ones that are writing the speeches. They're the ones that are providing them with the funds and the means and the organization to put all this together. These kids didn't do this. Come on. I was 17 at one point. Come on. But yeah, when they called me a murderer, and when they called all of my brothers and sisters that are patriots and that are Second Amendment supporters, many of which are veterans and are even closer to me because of the bond between veterans, my blood boiled at that too. I'm not going to take that anymore. I'm not going to just sit down and say, well, they're kids, they're just saying stupid things. No. They chose to say that. And whether they have the full capacity to understand how damaging that is, I don't really care anymore. So we have to band together. We have to get together. We have to organize. We have to be prepared, because they are coming for our guns. We've all known that. We've all known that for years. No matter how much you see it on the news where they laugh at us and say, nobody's coming for your guns. Yeah, they are. This is just a precursor. But it's getting faster. The attack on the Second Amendment, the attack on gun owners is speeding up. And it's going to ramp up to light speed real soon. So be ready. Be prepared. Get the guns that you want now. Get the guns that you need now. Get ammo, because there's a big ammo bill that just got put in front of Congress today. I don't think it's going to pass, but it's basically going to require an NICS background check for every ammo purchase. That's not a big deal, but that's a precursor to, let's jack up the tax, or let's jack up the fees for the NICS to make ammo too expensive to purchase. So, and I also think it's targeted at bulk internet and mail order sales of ammo. So stock up now while you can, because it's coming. At some point in time, the Democrats are going to take over Congress again. It's a cycle. We all know that. It's going to happen. And when that does happen, stand by. Because the attacks that you see now, while the Republicans are in charge, is nothing compared to what's going to happen once the Democrats take charge again. Be ready. We'll talk about it some more on this YouTube channel, and hopefully we'll get into some more fun things, and we'll be able to smile and laugh and have a good time and shoot some guns. That's what I want to do. I want to shoot some guns. I got to get out of the communist state of Massachusetts to do that first, though. So, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.